Remember when South Park first aired and parents across America collectively lost their minds? I'm talking about that fateful August night in 1997 when Comedy Central unleashed four foul-mouthed third graders on unsuspecting television audiences, and suddenly everyone was asking the same question. Did that cartoon kid just say what I think he said? Well, buckle up, because we're about to dive headfirst into over 2 hours of the most obscure, fascinating, and downright bizarre facts about South Park that even the most hardcore fans probably don't know. You see, South Park isn't just a cartoon. It's a cultural phenomenon that somehow managed to turn construction paper cutouts and third-grade humor into one of the most influential pieces of satirical television ever created. What started as a college student's crude animation experiment became a show that would tackle everything from religious fundamentalism to celebrity culture, from political corruption to internet trolls, all while maintaining the irreverent spirit of four kids who just happen to live in the most dysfunctional town in Colorado. But here's the thing about South Park that makes it absolutely perfect for this kind of deep dive. Beneath all that crude humor and shock value lies an incredibly sophisticated operation. Trey Parker and Matt Stone didn't just stumble into success with toilet jokes and controversial episodes. They built an empire on meticulous attention to detail, rapid-fire cultural commentary, and an almost obsessive dedication to pushing boundaries that other shows wouldn't dare approach. And trust me, the behind-the-scenes stories are just as wild as anything you've seen on screen. We're going to explore how a simple Christmas card animation featuring Jesus and Santa Claus fighting became the foundation for a television dynasty. We'll dig into the technical wizardry that allows South Park to go from current events to finished episode in just 6 days. A production schedule so insane, it makes other animated shows look like they're moving in slow motion. We'll catalog every single one of Kenny McCormick's deaths because, let's be honest, someone needs to keep track of just how many times they've killed that poor orange parka-wearing kid. And speaking of Kenny, did you know that his muffled speech isn't just random mumbling? There are actual words under that parka, and deciphering them has become something of an art form among fans. Or that the real town of South Park, Colorado, exists, and that Trey Parker's childhood experiences there directly influenced some of the show's most memorable episodes. We'll explore how geography, local politics, and small-town dynamics shaped not just the setting, but the entire philosophy of the show. But it's not just about the technical aspects or the real-world inspirations. South Park has been fearless in ways that would make other shows break out in cold sweats. When they decided to take on Scientology, they didn't just make a few jokes. They created an episode so controversial that it allegedly led to the departure of Isaac Hayes and triggered a full-scale war with one of Hollywood's most powerful celebrity cults. When they wanted to comment on censorship, they didn't write a think piece. They created an episode so provocative that Comedy Central still won't air it in its original form. This is what makes South Park endlessly fascinating. It's simultaneously the most juvenile and most sophisticated show on television. 1 minute you're watching Cartman sing about his authorita, and the next you're witnessing a brilliant deconstruction of American foreign policy disguised as a story about underpants gnomes. It's this duality that has allowed the show to survive and thrive for over 2 decades, while countless other animated series have come and gone. We'll explore how 2 college friends from Colorado managed to maintain creative control in an industry notorious for executive interference. We'll look at the show's evolution from simple shock comedy to sharp political satire, and how Parker and Stone's libertarian worldview shaped episodes that somehow managed to offend everyone equally. Because that's the South Park way. If you're not pissing off both sides of an argument, you're probably not doing it right. The cultural impact of South Park extends far beyond television. Catchphrases like, "Oh my God, they killed Kenny," became part of the American lexicon. The show's approach to celebrity satire influenced how we talk about fame and public figures. Its rapid response to current events changed expectations for how quickly entertainment could comment on real-world happenings. And let's not forget that the same creative mind behind South Park also gave us the Book of Mormon, proving that their satirical genius translates across mediums. Throughout this journey, we'll uncover production secrets that reveal just how much work goes into making something look so effortlessly crude. We'll examine episodes that were banned, censored, or caused international incidents. We'll dive into the voice acting process that allows two men to bring dozens of distinct characters to life. We'll explore the show's musical elements, from early comedy songs to full-blown Broadway-caliber productions. Most importantly, we'll celebrate what makes South Park special, its absolute refusal to play it safe. In an era of focus groups and corporate oversight, South Park remains defiantly uncompromising. It's a show that has never forgotten its roots as a piece of rebellious art created by two friends who just wanted to make each other laugh. So whether you're a longtime fan who's seen every episode multiple times, or someone who's always wondered what all the fuss is about, get ready for a deep dive into the wonderfully twisted world of South Park. We're going to cover everything from animation techniques to international censorship battles, from celebrity feuds to fan theories that will make you look at familiar episodes in entirely new ways. Welcome to South Park, where the facts are just as outrageous as the fiction, and where every piece of trivia reveals another layer of the genius behind the madness. Picture this. It's 1992, and University of Colorado film student named Trey Parker is sitting in his dorm room, surrounded by construction paper, glue sticks, and a rickety old 16mm camera. He's got an assignment to create an animated short, but instead of going the traditional route with fancy equipment or sophisticated techniques, he decides to embrace the most low-tech approach imaginable. Little did he know that this decision to use literal construction paper cutouts would not only save his budget, but would eventually revolutionize television comedy and create one of the most recognizable animation styles in entertainment history. The original The Spirit of Christmas wasn't even supposed to be a big deal. Parker created this 4-minute short as a final project for his film class, featuring a simple premise that would become the foundation for everything that followed. What if Jesus and Santa Claus got into a fight? Using construction paper figures moved frame by frame in stop-motion animation, Parker crafted a crude but hilarious battle between two of Christianity's most beloved figures, complete with profanity that would make sailors blush and violence that was both shocking and absurd. But here's where the story gets interesting, and where we see the first glimpse of the genius that would define South Park's approach to production. The construction paper wasn't just a budget constraint. It was a stylistic choice that solved multiple problems at once. Traditional animation requires teams of skilled artists, expensive equipment, and months of production time. Parker's paper cutout method could be done by one person with materials from a craft store. The deliberately crude aesthetic also gave the animation a handmade, punk rock quality that stood out in a world of increasingly polished cartoon productions. The technical process was as simple as it was ingenious. Parker would cut out basic shapes from colored construction paper, circles for heads, rectangles for bodies, strips for arms and legs. These pieces were then arranged on a flat surface and photographed frame by frame, with tiny adjustments between each shot to create the illusion of movement. Want a character to walk? Move the legs slightly between each frame. Need someone to talk? Simply move the bottom half of their head up and down. It was animation stripped down to its most essential elements, and somehow that simplicity made it more expressive than many big-budget productions. What really made the construction paper style work wasn't just its visual appeal, but how it influenced the writing and comedy. The limitations of the medium forced Parker to focus on dialogue and character interaction rather than elaborate visual gags. When your characters are essentially paper dolls, you can't rely on sophisticated facial expressions or complex physical comedy. Instead, you have to make them funny through their words, their relationships, and their situations. This constraint actually became South Park's greatest strength. The show has always been driven by sharp writing and character dynamics rather than flashy animation. The original Spirit of Christmas was passed around the University of Colorado campus like underground contraband. Students would make copies on VHS tapes and share them with friends, creating an organic viral phenomenon years before the internet made such things common. The short was funny, shocking, and completely unlike anything else anyone had seen. It had the transgressive thrill of something that probably shouldn't exist, combined with genuine comedic talent that made it impossible to dismiss as just shock value. But the real breakthrough came when the short found its way to Hollywood. This is where the George Clooney connection becomes crucial to South Park history. Clooney, who was already a rising star but not yet the mega celebrity he'd become, somehow got his hands on a copy of The Spirit of Christmas and became obsessed with it. He started making copies and handing them out to everyone he knew in the entertainment industry. Suddenly, this college animation project was being watched by agents, producers, and network executives across Los Angeles. The construction paper aesthetic proved to be incredibly memorable in a way that more polished animation might not have been. When Hollywood executives saw The Spirit of Christmas, they didn't think this looks cheap. They thought this looks different. In an industry where differentiation is everything, Parker had accidentally created something that stood out from every other animated project being pitched. The crude style became a selling point rather than a liability. What's fascinating is how the construction paper origins influenced every aspect of South Park's eventual production philosophy. Even when the show moved to computer animation, Parker and Stone insisted on maintaining the flat, paper-cut-out look. Modern South Park episodes are created using sophisticated Maya software, but enormous effort goes into making sure they still look like they were made with construction paper and glue. The characters still move with that distinctive paper doll stiffness. Backgrounds still have that flat, craft project quality, and new characters are designed to look like they could be cut out of colored paper. This commitment to the original aesthetic goes beyond nostalgia. It's about maintaining the show's punk rock ethos. The construction paper look constantly reminds viewers that South Park comes from outsider origins, that it's not trying to compete with Disney or Pixar on their terms. It's animation for people who are suspicious of too much polish, too much corporate smoothness. The deliberately crude style signals that this is a show made by people who care more about what they're saying than how pretty it looks. The influence of this construction paper revolution extends far beyond South Park itself. The success of Parker's ultra-low-tech approach proved that animation didn't need massive budgets or armies of artists to be effective. It inspired countless other creators to experiment with simple, distinctive styles rather than trying to match the technical sophistication of major studios. Shows like Dr. Katz, home movies, and even Aqua Teen Hunger Force all embraced deliberately crude or unusual animation styles that prioritize personality over polish. Most importantly, the construction paper origins established South Park's core principle. Constraints breed creativity. By embracing limitations rather than fighting them, Parker and Stone created something that was both technically simple and artistically revolutionary. That 4-minute college project didn't just launch a television series. It changed how people think about animation, proving that sometimes the most powerful creative tool is a pair of scissors and some colored paper. Kenny McCormick has died 126 times. Let that number sink in for a moment. 126 separate, distinct deaths across 25 seasons of South Park, each one more elaborate and absurd than the last. If you're wondering how we know this exact number, it's because somewhere out there, dedicated fans have been keeping meticulous records of every single Kenny death, cataloging them with the obsessive precision typically reserved for baseball statistics or stock market data. And honestly, they're doing God's work because Kenny's deaths aren't just running gags. They're a masterclass in escalating absurdity and a perfect example of how South Park takes simple concepts and pushes them to their logical extreme. The whole Kenny death phenomenon started almost by accident. In the very first episode, Cartman gets an anal probe. Kenny gets trampled by a herd of cows and dies. The other boys deliver the now iconic line, "Oh my God, they killed Kenny. You bastards." And then the episode just moves on like nothing happened. Trey Parker and Matt Stone didn't necessarily plan for this to become a recurring element. They just thought it was funny to kill off a main character and have everyone react with mild annoyance rather than grief. But what started as a one-off joke quickly evolved into something much more sophisticated. By season 2, Kenny's deaths were becoming increasingly elaborate set pieces. He wasn't just getting run over by cars anymore. He was being struck by lightning while standing in a puddle, getting crushed by a piano that fell from a window, or spontaneously combusting after eating a spicy chip. The show's writers began treating Kenny's death scenes like weekly challenges. How can we top last week's demise? How absurd can we make this while still making it funny? The statistics behind Kenny's deaths reveal fascinating patterns that speak to both the show's evolution and its creator's sense of humor. Early seasons averaged about 2.3 Kenny deaths per season, but this number spikes dramatically during seasons 4 and 5, when the writers were really leaning into the absurdity. Season 5 alone features 8 separate Kenny deaths, including the memorable Kenny Dies episode where his death is actually treated as a serious dramatic event rather than a throwaway gag. What's particularly brilliant about the Kenny death formula is how it subverts our expectations about mortality in children's entertainment. Most cartoons go to great lengths to avoid showing characters in real danger. Think about how Tom never actually catches Jerry, or how while Coyote always survives his encounters with explosives. South Park flipped this completely, making the violent death of a child character into a weekly occurrence that everyone treats as routine. It's dark comedy in its purest form, finding humor in the uncomfortable reality that death is both universal and mundane. The methods of Kenny's deaths also reveal a lot about the show's approach to comedy writing. In the early seasons, most deaths were relatively simple. Getting hit by vehicles, falling off cliffs, basic cartoon violence amplified to lethal levels. But as the writers grew more confident and the show's budget increased, Kenny's deaths became elaborate Rube Goldberg machines of destruction. Season 7's Red Man's Greed features a Kenny death that involves a casino, a gas leak, and a perfectly timed cigarette lighter that creates an explosion visible from space. But Kenny doesn't just die randomly. There's actually a mythology behind his immortality that the show slowly revealed over many seasons. We eventually learned that Kenny's family belongs to a Cthulhu cult, and that Kenny is literally reborn after each death, retaining memories of his previous demises. This explanation transforms Kenny from a simple running gag into a genuinely tragic figure who experiences the trauma of dying repeatedly while his friends remain oblivious to the pattern. The psychological implications of Kenny's situation are genuinely disturbing when you think about them seriously. Imagine retaining full memory of being burned alive, crushed by falling objects, or torn apart by wild animals, only to wake up the next day and have to go to school like nothing happened. It's a form of cosmic horror disguised as slapstick comedy, and it adds a layer of dark sophistication to what could have been a simple recurring joke. Analyzing Kenny's survival rates reveals interesting trends in the show's storytelling priorities. He's most likely to die in episodes focused on the other boys' adventures, where his death serves as punctuation to whatever chaos Cartman, Stan, or Kyle have unleashed. Conversely, he almost never dies in episodes where he's a central character. The show reserves his death for moments when they can have maximum comedic impact without derailing the main plot. The most creative Kenny deaths often serve as commentary on whatever social issue the episode is addressing. When South Park tackles gun violence, Kenny gets shot. When they're satirizing health food trends, he dies from eating too many organic vegetables. When they're mocking extreme sports, he gets killed attempting some ridiculous stunt. His deaths become a way for the writers to literalize the dangers they're commenting on, turning abstract social criticism into concrete and hilarious consequences. International versions of South Park have had interesting challenges dealing with Kenny's deaths. Some countries have censorship standards that require editing out graphic violence, even cartoon violence, which creates problems when Kenny's death is integral to an episode's plot. This has led to some creative solutions, including versions where Kenny simply disappears rather than dying, or where his deaths are replaced with him getting hurt but surviving. The cultural impact of, "Oh my God, they killed Kenny," extends far beyond the show itself. The phrase became a meme before memes were formally recognized as a cultural phenomenon. It appeared on t-shirts, bumper stickers, and in everyday conversation as a way to express mock outrage at minor inconveniences. Politicians have used variations of the phrase in speeches. It's been referenced in other TV shows, movies, and even academic papers about media violence. Perhaps most impressively, Kinney's deaths have actually influenced how other animated shows approach character mortality. The success of South Park's approach proved that audiences were willing to accept much darker humor in animated entertainment than previously thought. Shows like Family Guy, Rick and Morty, and BoJack Horseman all feature casual character deaths that probably wouldn't have been acceptable before South Park normalized the concept. Kenny McCormick's 126 deaths represent more than just elaborate sight gags. They're a testament to the power of committing fully to an absurd premise and following it to its logical conclusion. What started as a simple joke about cartoon mortality became a complex exploration of death, rebirth, friendship, and the crushing weight of cosmic indifference. And somehow, it's still really, really funny. Most people assume South Park, Colorado, is just a fictional creation of Trey Parker and Matt Stone's imagination, a deliberately absurd name for an equally absurd town where cartoon children can witness alien abductions, underpants gnome invasions, and religious wars between Jesus and Santa Claus. But here's the thing that blows most fans' minds when they first discover it. South Park is a real place. Not just kind of real, not just inspired by a real place, but an actual geographic location in Colorado where real people live, work, and presumably deal with significantly fewer visits from Cthulhu than their fictional counterpart. The real South Park is a high mountain valley in Park County, Colorado, sitting at an elevation of about 10,000 feet above sea level. It's what geologists call a park, a large, relatively flat valley surrounded by mountains, which explains the name that would later become synonymous with cartoon controversy. The area covers roughly 1,000 square miles of grassland and is home to maybe 1,000 people on a good day, making it one of the most sparsely populated regions in Colorado. When Trey Parker was growing up there in the 1980s, it was even more isolated, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business and the nearest McDonald's was a 2-hour drive away. Parker has been refreshingly honest about how his childhood in the real South Park directly influenced the fictional version. The isolation, the small-town dynamics, the way local scandals became all-consuming obsessions for weeks at a time. All of this found its way into the show's DNA. In real South Park, when something weird happened, it really was the kind of event that would dominate conversation at the local diner for months. Parker took this concept and amplified it to absurd extremes, creating a fictional town where bizarre events happen weekly, but somehow still manage to shock and surprise the residents. The geography of Real South Park explains a lot about the show's setting and atmosphere. It's genuinely in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by mountain ranges that create a natural barrier between the valley and the outside world. This isolation breeds a particular kind of self-contained community mindset that Parker captured perfectly in the show. When you're 2 hours from a near city, your neighbors become incredibly important, for better or worse. Local conflicts take on outsized significance because there's literally nowhere else to go, and eccentric personalities become local legends because the population is small enough that everyone becomes a character. The real town doesn't have a mayor who's constantly dealing with alien invasions or a local bar where adults gather to discuss the latest supernatural crisis. But it does have the kind of tight-knit community dynamics that make those fictional scenarios feel plausible. Parker has mentioned in interviews that some of the show's most outlandish community meeting scenes were directly inspired by actual town halls he attended as a kid, where seemingly minor issues would explode into passionate debates that revealed deep-seated tensions and long-standing grudges. One of the most famous real-world South Park connections is Casa Bonita, the Mexican restaurant that became the subject of one of the show's most beloved episodes. Casa Bonita is a real restaurant in Denver, technically Lakewood, and it's exactly as wonderfully bizarre as depicted in the show. It features cliff divers, elaborate fake caves, and a general atmosphere of chaotic family entertainment that defies description. The fact that Parker and Stone love this place so much they feature it prominently in an episode speaks to their commitment to mining their real Colorado experiences for comedy gold. But here's where the story gets even better. In 2021, Parker and Stone actually purchased Casa Bonita. Yes, The creators of South Park bought the Real restaurant that inspired one of their most famous episodes. They've committed to restoring it to its full glory, proving that sometimes art imitates life in the most wonderfully circular way possible. The restaurant had fallen into disrepair and bankruptcy, but now it's being lovingly restored by the same people who immortalized it in animation. The influence of Colorado geography on South Park episodes goes beyond just the setting. The state's political culture, a weird mix of libertarian independence, environmental consciousness, and live and let live attitudes, shapes many of the show's storylines. Colorado voters legalized marijuana early, embraced marriage equality, but also have a strong gun culture and skepticism toward federal government overreach. This complex political landscape shows up constantly in South Park episodes, where characters express views that don't fit neatly into traditional liberal or conservative categories. Real South Park's economy is based primarily on ranching and tourism, which explains why the fictional version often deals with conflicts between traditional ways of life and modern intrusions. Episodes about developers trying to change the town, conflicts between locals and tourists, or tensions between old-timer families and newcomers all draw directly from real issues facing rural Colorado communities. Parker didn't have to invent these conflicts. He just had to exaggerate situations he'd witnessed growing up. The seasonal changes in Real South Park also influenced the show's storytelling rhythm. Winters in the Colorado high country are brutal and isolating, which explains why so many South Park episodes feature characters going stir-crazy or developing elaborate conspiracy theories. When you're snowed in for months at a time with the same group of people, even minor personality quirks become magnified into major conflicts. The show's claustrophobic community dynamics make perfect sense when you understand they're based on the real experience of winter isolation in a mountain valley. Weather patterns in Real South Park are genuinely extreme enough to inspire some of the show's more outlandish scenarios. Sudden blizzards can cut off the valley from the outside world for days or weeks. Summer thunderstorms are violent and dramatic. The thin air at high altitude affects newcomers in ways that can seem almost supernatural. Parker took these real environmental challenges and pushed them into supernatural territory. But the underlying truth about living in an extreme environment gives even the most absurd episodes a foundation of authenticity. Local wildlife in Real South Park includes elk, deer, black bears, and mountain lions, dangerous animals that actually do pose real threats to residents. This background of genuine wilderness danger makes the show's frequent animal-related chaos feel grounded in reality, even when it involves genetically modified towels or prehistoric icemen. Growing up in a place where encountering a bear in your backyard is a legitimate possibility gives you a different perspective on what constitutes normal versus extraordinary. The Real South Park continues to exist and thrive, largely unbothered by its fictional fame. Most residents seem to take pride in their connection to the show, though they're quick to point out that their daily lives involve significantly fewer alien encounters and celebrity chef invasions than the TV version might suggest. In the annals of television history, few shows have managed to pick fights with as many powerful people as South Park, but none of those battles were as spectacular, prolonged, or consequential as the all-out war between Comedy Central's crude cartoon and the Church of Scientology. This wasn't just a case of a TV show making fun of a religion. This was a multi-year conflict involving A-list celebrities, network executives, legal threats, missing episodes, and a voice actor's dramatic exit that revealed the incredible power certain organizations wield in Hollywood. And at the center of it all was one of South Park's most fearless episodes, Trapped in the Closet, which managed to simultaneously explain Scientology's core beliefs and mock them so effectively that the reverberations are still being felt nearly 2 decades later. The saga began in November 2005 with the airing of Trapped in the Closet, an episode that did something unprecedented in mainstream entertainment. It actually explained what Scientologists believe. Not the sanitized public relations version of Scientology, but the actual core mythology involving an alien overlord named Xenu, volcanic explosions, and souls called Thetans. The episode presented these beliefs with complete sincerity, letting the inherent absurdity speak for itself. At the bottom of the screen, the text, "This is what Scientologists actually believe," appeared during the most outlandish revelations, a detail that would prove to be the most inflammatory aspect of the entire episode. The plot of the episode was brilliantly simple. Stan takes a personality test and is declared the reincarnation of Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard. This brings him to the attention of celebrity Scientologists, including a thinly disguised Tom Cruise who literally hides in Stan's closet and refuses to come out. The episode managed to work on multiple levels. As a critique of Scientology's practices, as commentary on celebrity culture, and as an extended metaphor about closeted sexuality that had Tom Cruise's character literally hiding in a closet while other characters beg him to come out. What made this episode so dangerous to Scientology wasn't just the mockery. The organization had dealt with satirical attacks before. The real threat was the accuracy. Parker and Stone had done their homework, consulting books by former Scientologists and court documents for various legal cases. They presented Scientology's secret upper-level teachings, the ones that cost members hundreds of thousands of dollars and years of training to access on basic cable television for free. This wasn't just comedy. It was the most comprehensive explanation of Scientology beliefs ever broadcast to a mainstream audience. The immediate aftermath was relatively quiet, but behind the scenes, the pressure was building. Tom Cruise, who was at the height of his career and deeply involved in Scientology, was reportedly furious about his portrayal. Industry insiders began hearing rumors that Cruise was using his considerable influence to pressure Viacom, Comedy Central's parent company, to suppress the episode. This pressure allegedly extended to threats about his participation in promoting Mission Impossible 3, a major Paramount film that was crucial to Viacom's financial health. The Real explosion came in March 2006 when Isaac Hayes, who had voiced the character Chef since the show's beginning, announced he was leaving South Park. Hayes released a statement claiming he could no longer be part of a show that has crossed the line from satire into intolerance and bigotry. This was shocking to fans and industry observers because Hayes had never objected to the show's treatment of other religions, including episodes that savagely mocked Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and Buddhism. The timing made it clear that this was specifically about Scientology. What many people didn't know at the time was that Isaac Hayes had been a Scientologist since the 1990s. His departure wasn't just a creative disagreement. It was a result of pressure from within Scientology to distance himself from a show that had exposed the organization's most closely guarded secrets. Parker and Stone were initially diplomatic about Hayes' departure, but they later revealed their frustration with what they saw as hypocrisy. As Trey Parker put it, Hayes had no problem with episodes mocking other people's religions, but when it came to his own beliefs, suddenly the show had crossed the line. The controversy escalated when Comedy Central mysteriously pulled Trapped in the Closet from a scheduled rerun in March 2006. The network claimed it was due to scheduling conflicts, but industry insiders reported that the decision came after direct pressure from Tom Cruise's representatives. This apparent censorship backbite spectacularly. The Streisand effect kicked in, and suddenly everyone wanted to see the banned episode. Bootleg copies circulated online, and the episode became more famous for being suppressed than it might have been if it had simply aired normally. Parker and Stone's response to Hayes' departure and the network censorship was characteristically defiant. They created The Return of Chef, an episode that killed off Hayes' character in deliberately over-the-top fashion while making it clear they viewed his departure as the result of brainwashing. The episode featured Chef saying things that were clearly spliced together from previous episodes, making him sound like he was speaking against his will, a not-so-subtle commentary on how they viewed Scientology's influence over Hayes. The legal implications of the Scientology conflict extended far beyond South Park. The Church of Scientology has a well-documented history of using litigation to silence critics, and Comedy Central's legal department was reportedly nervous about potential lawsuits. This concern influenced how the network handled not just South Park, but other programming that might touch on controversial religious topics. The The chilling effect was real and significant, demonstrating how legal pressure from well-funded organizations can influence content even when that content is protected speech. The international ramifications were equally significant. Trapped in the Closet was banned or heavily edited in several countries where Scientology has strong legal protections or where broadcasting standards are more restrictive. This created a situation where American audiences had access to information about Scientology that was literally illegal to broadcast in some other countries, highlighting the global nature of religious and legal censorship. The cruise factor added another layer of complexity to the entire situation. At the time, Cruise was one of the most powerful actors in Hollywood, and his involvement with Scientology was becoming increasingly public and controversial. His bizarre behavior during the promotion of War of the Worlds and his infamous couch-jumping appearance on Oprah had already made him a target for comedians. But South Park's portrayal was uniquely devastating because it connected his personal behavior to his religious beliefs in ways that other satirists hadn't dared to attempt. The long-term impact of the Scientology war extended far beyond the immediate controversy. It established South Park as genuinely fearless in a way that impressed even critics who didn't necessarily enjoy the show's humor. The willingness to take on both a major religion and A-list celebrities simultaneously demonstrated a level of editorial independence that was rare in corporate-owned media. It also proved that animated comedy could tackle serious investigative topics in ways that traditional journalism sometimes couldn't or wouldn't. The episode remains one of South Park's most requested and most discussed, a perfect example of how comedy can serve as a vehicle for genuine social criticism. By simply presenting Scientology's beliefs accurately and letting audiences draw their own conclusions, Parker and Stone created something more powerful than a traditional expose. They created comedy that was also legitimate journalism. In the world of television animation, production schedules are typically measured in months or even years. Traditional animated shows require extensive pre-production, detailed storyboarding, voice recording, animation, post-production, and quality control processes that could take anywhere from 6 months to 2 years from initial concept to final broadcast. Then there's South Park, which operates on what can only be described as an absolutely insane 6-day production cycle that allows the show to respond to current events with a speed that makes CNN look sluggish. This breakneck schedule isn't just a quirky production choice. It's the secret weapon that has kept South Park relevant and cutting edge for over 2 decades. The 6-day miracle begins every Wednesday morning in a nondescript building in Los Angeles, where Trey Parker and Matt Stone gather with their writing staff to decide what fresh hell they're going to unleash on the world the following Wednesday. This isn't a casual brainstorming session. It's a high-pressure creative sprint where ideas are pitched, developed, and either approved or discarded within hours. By Wednesday evening, they need to have a complete story outline, because Thursday morning the real madness begins. Thursday is script day, and it's where the legendary South Park work ethic becomes apparent. Parker, who writes or co-writes nearly every episode, often doesn't leave the office until the script is complete. This isn't unusual in television. What's unusual is that he's writing a script that will air in 5 days. Most TV writers have weeks or months to polish their work, but Parker is essentially doing live television writing for an animated show. The pressure is so intense that the writing staff has developed a gallows humor about the process, referring to Thursday as the day dreams go to die. Friday through Sunday represents the technical miracle that makes South Park possible. While Parker and the writers are still tweaking dialogue and making last-minute story changes, the animation team is already working on completed scenes. This parallel processing approach would be impossible with traditional animation methods, but South Park's digital production pipeline allows for real-time collaboration between writers and animators. Using Maya software, the animation team can quickly assemble scenes using pre-existing character models and backgrounds, moving with a speed that would be impossible if they had to draw everything from scratch. The voice recording process happens throughout this period, often with Parker recording lines from multiple characters while the episode is still being written. This creates surreal situations where Parker might be voicing Stan's dialogue for a scene that hasn't been animated yet, while simultaneously rewriting Kenny's death scene for a completely different part of the episode. The fact that Parker and Stone voice most of the main characters actually works in their favor here. They don't have to coordinate schedules with external voice actors or deal with the logistics of bringing in celebrity guests. Monday and Tuesday are where the magic happens and where the team either pulls off another impossible deadline or faces the prospect of missing their first air date in the show's history. These are the days when all the elements, animation, voice acting, music, sound effects, and visual effects, get assembled into a final episode. The post-production work that normally takes weeks for other shows gets compressed into 48 hours of nearly nonstop work. The sound design team is adding effects to scenes that were animated hours earlier. The music team is composing and recording songs that will air in less than 48 hours. What makes this schedule even more remarkable is the level of quality control that somehow gets maintained despite the insane time pressure. Every episode still goes through multiple review cycles, color correction, audio mixing, and technical quality checks. The difference is that instead of having weeks to perfect these elements, the team has hours. This has created a work culture where first takes often have to be final takes, where good enough becomes perfect out of necessity. The technical infrastructure required to support this schedule is genuinely impressive. South Park Studios has invested heavily in redundant systems, backup equipment, and fail-safes to ensure that technical problems don't derail the entire production. They have multiple render farms running simultaneously, backup voice recording setups, and even backup internet connections to ensure that nothing can stop the Wednesday deadline. The IT department basically operates like a military unit, because a server crash on Monday night could mean missing an air date. The psychological toll of this schedule on the creative team is something that Parker and Stone have been surprisingly open about. Both have admitted that the 6-day cycle is simultaneously the best and worst aspect of working on South Park. The constant pressure creates an adrenaline-fueled creative environment where there's no time for second-guessing or overthinking, which often results in some of their best work. But it also means that for nearly half the year, their lives are completely consumed by the show, with no time for breaks, vacations, or even normal sleep schedules. The 6-day schedule has also influenced the show's writing style in subtle but important ways. There's no time for elaborate subplots or complex character development arcs that span multiple episodes. Every episode has to be self-contained and immediately comprehensible, which has pushed the writers toward increasingly sharp, focused storytelling. The time pressure actually forces them to cut anything that isn't essential, resulting in remarkably tight scripts that waste no time getting to the point. The competitive advantage this schedule provides cannot be overstated. When Donald Trump made his infamous grab them by the pussy comments in October 2016, South Park had an episode addressing the controversy on the air within days. When major news events happen, other satirical shows need weeks or months to respond, but South Park can literally respond faster than most news organizations. This ability to comment on current events while they're still current events gives the show a relevance that's impossible to achieve with traditional production schedules. The influence of South Park's rapid production model has extended throughout the animation industry. Other shows have attempted to adopt similar approaches, though none have managed to match South Park's combination of speed and consistency. The success of the 6-day model has also influenced live-action television, with some shows adopting more compressed production schedules to maintain topical relevance. Perhaps most importantly, the 6-day schedule has become integral to South Park's creative identity. The time pressure forces Parker and Stone to trust their instincts and commit to ideas that they might second-guess given more time. Some of the show's most memorable episodes were created under extreme deadline pressure, when there was no time for committee decisions or focus group testing. The schedule doesn't just enable South Park's topical humor. It is South Park's topical humor, turning the impossible deadline into a creative tool that produces comedy gold under pressure. The friendship between Trey Parker and Matt Stone represents one of the most successful creative partnerships in entertainment history, a collaboration that has produced not just South Park, but also films like A.S. Secondball and Team America, World Police, plus the Tony Award-winning Broadway musical The Book of Mormon. But what makes their relationship truly fascinating isn't just their professional success. It's how two guys from Colorado managed to maintain both a genuine friendship and creative control in an industry notorious for destroying both. Their partnership offers a masterclass in how creative collaboration can work when both parties bring complementary skills, shared values, and enough mutual respect to survive the pressures of fame, fortune, and network television. The origin story of their friendship reads like a Hollywood screenplay, except it's actually true and infinitely more endearing than most fictional versions. Parker and Stone met at the University of Colorado in the early 1990s, bonding over their shared love of Monty Python, their mutual disdain for pretentious film school projects, and their discovery that they could make each other laugh until they couldn't breathe. Both were studying film, but they approached it from completely different angles. Parker was the natural performer and writer, while Stone was more interested in the business and technical aspects of filmmaking. Their early collaborations were exercises in controlled chaos that established patterns they still follow today. Parker would come up with increasingly outrageous ideas, and Stone would figure out how to make them actually work. When Parker wanted to create a musical about Alfred Packer, the infamous Colorado cannibal, Stone helped him navigate the practical challenges of mounting a college production. When Parker dreamed up the original spirit of Christmas animation, Stone helped him figure out how to distribute it and eventually turn it into a career. From the very beginning, their partnership has been built on Parker's creative vision combined with Stone's practical intelligence. What's remarkable about their working relationship is how clearly defined their roles became over time, without either person feeling diminished by the division of labor. Parker is the primary creative engine. He writes most episodes, voices most characters, and generates most of the initial ideas that become South Park storylines. Stone serves as editor, critic, business manager, and voice of reason, helping to refine Parker's ideas and handle the practical aspects of running a multi-million-dollar entertainment empire. This division works because both men genuinely respect what the other brings to the partnership. The political alignment between Parker and Stone has been crucial to South Park's consistent voice over more than 2 decades. Both men describe themselves as libertarian, skeptical of authority figures from both political parties, suspicious of organized religion but respectful of individual belief, and committed to the idea that comedy should comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. This shared worldview means they rarely disagree on the fundamental perspective of an episode, even if they might debate specific jokes or story elements. Their creative process has evolved into a remarkably efficient system that plays to both of their strengths. Parker generates the initial concept and writes the first draft of each script, often working alone in marathon sessions that can last 12 to 16 hours. Stone then reviews the script, offering suggestions for cuts, additions, and refinements. They'll spend hours debating whether a particular joke works, whether a character's motivation makes sense, or whether an episode's message is coming across clearly. These discussions can get heated, but both men have learned to separate creative criticism from personal attacks. One of the most impressive aspects of their partnership is how they've managed to maintain creative control while building a significant business empire. South Park Studios, their production company, has grown from a small animation house into a multifaceted entertainment company. But Parker and Stone have retained ownership and creative control of their properties. This is almost unheard of in Hollywood, where creators typically trade ownership for financial backing. Their business success has given them the freedom to take creative risks that might not be possible if they were answerable to network executives or corporate shareholders. The friendship has survived some genuinely challenging periods that would have destroyed less solid partnerships. The intense pressure of the 6-day production schedule means they spend enormous amounts of time together under extremely stressful conditions. They've had to navigate the complexities of sudden fame, significant wealth, and the constant scrutiny that comes with creating controversial content. They've dealt with legal threats, network interference, and celebrity feuds together, presenting a united front even when they might have personal disagreements about how to handle specific situations. Their collaboration on the Book of Mormon revealed new dimensions of their partnership and demonstrated their ability to work successfully outside the South Park universe. The musical allowed Parker to explore his love of theater and songwriting while giving Stone an opportunity to apply his business acumen to Broadway production. The show's massive success proved that their creative chemistry wasn't limited to animation or even to comedy. They could create sophisticated, nuanced entertainment that appealed to audiences far beyond South Park's typical demographic. What's particularly interesting about their friendship is how they've managed to grow as individuals while maintaining their collaborative identity. Parker has become increasingly interested in musical theater and has developed his skills as a composer and lyricist. Stone has become more involved in the business side of entertainment and has developed expertise in digital distribution and new media. These individual interests have enriched their collaboration rather than threatening it, bringing new perspectives and skills to their shared projects. The influence of their partnership extends far beyond their own work. They've demonstrated that creative partnerships can survive commercial success, that friends can work together without destroying their friendship, and that maintaining creative control is possible even in corporate entertainment environments. Their success has inspired other creative teams to insist on ownership and control of their work, changing how creators negotiate with networks and studios. Perhaps most importantly, Parker and Stone have shown that genuine friendship can be the foundation for professional success rather than an obstacle to it. Their mutual respect, shared values, and complementary skills have created a partnership that's stronger than either could be individually. In an industry where ego conflicts and creative differences destroy partnerships regularly, their 25-year collaboration stands as proof that the right friendship, properly maintained, can be the most valuable asset any creative person can have. Their friendship has become part of South Park's DNA, visible in the show's consistent voice, its fearless approach to controversial topics, and its refusal to compromise its vision for commercial considerations. When you watch South Park, you're watching the product of a genuine friendship between two people who still make each other laugh. In the vast landscape of television censorship battles, few moments have been as defining or as revelatory about the state of free speech in America as South Park's epic confrontation with Comedy Central over the episodes Cartoon Wars and 201. This wasn't just another case of a network getting nervous about offensive content. This was a full-scale clash between artistic freedom and religious extremism that exposed the genuine fear that certain forms of comedy could literally put people's lives in danger. The controversy centered around something that seems almost absurd in its simplicity: whether a cartoon show could depict the Prophet Muhammad, even in the most respectful context possible. The saga began in 2005 with the Danish newspaper cartoon controversy, when European publications printed editorial cartoons depicting Muhammad, sparking violent protests across the Muslim world and death threats against the cartoonists involved. This international incident caught the attention of Parker and Stone, who saw it as a perfect opportunity to explore the limits of free speech and the growing influence of religious extremism on artistic expression. Their response was characteristically bold. They would create episodes that directly addressed censorship while testing the boundaries of what Comedy Central would allow them to broadcast. Cartoon Wars Parts 1 and 2 aired in April 2006 and represented South Park at its most sophisticated and self-aware. The episodes featured a show within a show called Family Guy. Yes, the real Family Guy, planning to air an episode depicting Muhammad, which causes panic throughout the fictional South Park universe. The meta-commentary was brilliant. Parker and Stone were using their own show to discuss censorship while simultaneously testing those very limits. They created a scenario where cartoon characters were debating the same issues that real network executives were discussing in conference rooms. The genius of the episodes lay in how they presented multiple perspectives on the censorship debate without taking a simplistic stance. Characters argued about whether showing Muhammad was necessary for free speech or simply provocative for its own sake. The show acknowledged the legitimate concerns of Muslims who find such depictions offensive, while also defending the principle that comedy should not be subject to threats of violence. It was South Park functioning as genuine political discourse, using humor to explore complex issues that traditional media was struggling to address. But here's where the story gets really interesting. Comedy Central allowed the episodes to air, but with one crucial censorship. When a moment came to show Muhammad in the fictional Family Guy episode, the screen displayed a black box with text reading, "Comedy Central has refused to broadcast an image of Muhammad on their network." This wasn't Parker and Stone's choice. It was network censorship happening in real time, turning the fictional censorship within the show into actual censorship of the show itself. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. South Park was creating episodes about censorship that were themselves being censored, proving the very point the episodes were trying to make. The black box became more powerful than whatever image it was hiding, transforming an act of network cowardice into a statement about the state of free speech in America. Parker and Stone had managed to turn their own censorship into content, making Comedy Central's interference part of the artistic statement. The controversy escalated dramatically with the 200th episode in 2010, titled 200, and its follow-up 201. These episodes brought back numerous characters from South Park's history, including a figure in a bear costume who was supposed to be Muhammad, but might have been someone else entirely. The show deliberately obscured his identity to mess with both censors and audiences. The episodes were Parker and Stone's most ambitious attempt yet to address the censorship issue while celebrating the show's legacy. The reaction was swift and terrifying. Revolution Muslim, an extremist group based in New York, posted online threats against Parker and Stone that included their home addresses and a warning that they could end up like Theo van Gogh, the Dutch filmmaker murdered by Islamic extremists in 2004. The threats were specific enough that the FBI got involved, and both creators had to increase their personal security. Suddenly, the abstract debate about free speech and religious sensitivity became very real and very personal. Comedy Central's response to the threats was to heavily censor 201 when it aired, bleeping out not just any mentions of Muhammad, but also the entire final speech about intimidation and fear. This created the surreal situation where a speech about censorship was itself censored, and audiences couldn't even hear the show's commentary on its own censorship. The episode became a Rorschach test for free speech advocates, religious groups, and network executives, with each group seeing confirmation of their own positions. The long-term impact of this censorship battle extended far beyond South Park itself. It demonstrated that threats of violence could effectively silence even the most fearless satirists, setting a precedent that other extremist groups quickly noticed. The controversy also revealed the complex relationship between comedy and security in the modern world, where jokes could literally put people's lives in danger and where corporate entities had to weigh artistic freedom against employee safety. International reactions to the censorship varied dramatically, with some countries supporting Comedy Central's decision while others criticized it as capitulation to extremism. The controversy sparked debates in journalism schools, law schools, and philosophy departments about the practical limits of free speech and the responsibility of media companies to protect their employees. It became a case study in how theoretical principles of free expression work in practice when faced with genuine threats of violence. The technical aspects of the censorship were almost as interesting as the political implications. Comedy Central had to develop new protocols for handling potentially dangerous content, including security assessments, legal reviews, and coordination with law enforcement agencies. The network's Standards and Practices Department essentially had to become a national security operation, evaluating not just whether content was offensive, but whether it was dangerous. Perhaps most significantly, the Muhammad controversy demonstrated the global reach of American entertainment and the complex cultural dynamics that come with that influence. South Park wasn't just making jokes for American audiences. It was creating content that would be seen worldwide and that could have international political implications. This realization forced Parker and Stone to grapple with responsibilities they never anticipated when they started making crude animations in college. The censorship of these episodes remains one of the most significant moments in television history, a perfect encapsulation of the tensions between artistic freedom, religious sensitivity, corporate responsibility, and personal safety in the modern media landscape. The musical episodes of South Park represent some of the most ambitious and technically impressive work in the show's entire run, transforming a crude animated comedy into a legitimate showcase for sophisticated songwriting, complex musical arrangements, and Broadway-caliber production values. What started as simple comedy songs has evolved into a musical theater laboratory where Trey Parker can experiment with every conceivable musical genre while advancing storylines and developing characters in ways that pure dialogue never could. These episodes demonstrate that South Park isn't just accidentally musical. It's fundamentally musical, with songs serving as essential storytelling tools rather than mere comedic diversions. The roots of South Park's musical ambitions trace back to Trey Parker's childhood obsession with musical theater and his college years writing and directing stage productions. Parker grew up watching classic Hollywood musicals and Broadway shows, developing an encyclopedic knowledge of musical theater conventions that he would later subvert and celebrate in equal measure. His college musical, Cannibal. The musical revealed his ability to write genuinely catchy songs while simultaneously parodying the entire genre, a skill that would become central to South Park's most memorable episodes. South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, the 1999 feature film, served as Parker's musical theater thesis statement and proved that South Park could sustain feature-length musical storytelling. The film contained over a dozen original songs that range from Disney-style villain anthems to Sondheim-inspired patter songs to full-scale production numbers that wouldn't be out of place on Broadway. The fact that the film earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Original Song proved that Parker's musical ambitions were being taken seriously by the entertainment industry. The television episodes that followed the movie's success became increasingly sophisticated in their musical arrangements and thematic integration. Chef's Chocolate Salty Balls was simple comedy, but episodes like Hell on Earth 2006 featured complex musical sequences that advanced plot, developed character relationships, and provided social commentary simultaneously. Parker learned to use different musical genres as storytelling shorthand: country music for small-town values, rap for urban authenticity, opera for dramatic gravitas, and pop ballads for emotional sincerity. The Book of Mormon, Parker and Stone's Broadway musical, represents the culmination of everything they learned about musical theater through South Park. The show's massive critical and commercial success validated their approach to combining sophisticated musical composition with irreverent humor and controversial subject matter. More importantly, it demonstrated that the musical skills Parker developed writing South Park songs could translate to traditional theater, earning them 9 Tony Awards and proving that their musical talents extended far beyond animated comedy. The technical production of South Park's musical episodes reveals the incredible sophistication hidden beneath the show's crude aesthetic. Parker typically writes both lyrics and music, often composing songs on his piano, while simultaneously developing the episode storyline. The show employs a full orchestra for recording sessions, with professional musicians performing arrangements that are often more complex than those found in many serious musicals. The fact that these elaborate productions happen within the show's 6-day creation schedule makes them even more impressive. One of the most remarkable aspects of South Park's musical episodes is how they use genre parody to make specific cultural and political points. Douche and Turd, with its campaign song parodies, satirizes American political theater while demonstrating Parker's mastery of patriotic musical conventions. Imaginationland features musical sequences that pastiche everything from Disney films to war movies, using familiar musical languages to comment on the power of imagination and the nature of fictional reality. The voice acting challenges presented by musical episodes showcase another dimension of Parker and Stone's talents. Parker voices most of the male characters, which means he's often essentially performing one-man musical theater, switching between different character voices while maintaining the musical integrity of complex songs. His ability to make Cartman sound convincing while singing an opera aria, or to give Stan's voice appropriate emotional weight, during a ballad demonstrates genuine vocal versatility that goes far beyond typical voice acting. The influence of South Park's musical episodes extends throughout the animation industry and beyond. Shows like Bob's Burgers, Steven Universe, and Phineas and Ferb all feature regular musical content that owes a debt to South Park's demonstration that animated comedies could successfully incorporate sophisticated musical elements. The success of these musical episodes also influenced live-action television, contributing to the recent boom in musical episodes across various genres. The international reception of South Park's musical episodes reveals interesting cultural differences in how music and comedy intersect. Some countries have embraced the musical elements while censoring the controversial lyrics, creating surreal versions where characters sing elaborate songs with completely different meanings. Other countries have banned musical episodes entirely, viewing the combination of catchy melodies and subversive lyrics as particularly dangerous to social order. Parker's songwriting process for South Park episodes typically begins with identifying the emotional core of whatever story they're telling, then finding the musical genre that best expresses those emotions. This approach has led to songs that work both as comedy and as legitimate musical compositions, earning respect from professional musicians and Broadway composers who appreciate the technical craftsmanship behind the humor. The cultural impact of individual South Park songs extends far beyond the episodes themselves. Blame Canada became a genuine protest anthem during various political controversies. I'm Super influenced discussions about superhero culture and masculinity. Kyle's Mom's a Bitch became a juvenile classic that perfectly captured the spirit of childhood rebellion. These songs succeeded because they combined genuine musical merit with universal emotional themes. The educational value of South Park's musical episodes shouldn't be underestimated. Many viewers have learned about different musical genres, historical events, and cultural phenomena through songs that make complex topics accessible and memorable. Parker's ability to distill complicated political situations into catchy 3-minute songs has arguably made South Park one of the most effective political education tools in modern media. Perhaps most importantly, the musical episodes demonstrate South Park's commitment to constant evolution and creative growth. Rather than settling into predictable formulas, Parker and Stone continue to push themselves musically, treating each musical episode as an opportunity to explore new genres, experiment with different arrangements, and challenge their own artistic boundaries. This musical ambition keeps the show feeling fresh and innovative even after more than 2 decades on the air. The legacy of South Park's musical episodes will likely influence entertainment for years to come, proving that comedy and music can combine to create something more powerful than either would be alone. When people think about South Park's most controversial moments, their minds typically jump to the Muhammad episodes, the Scientology War, or Kenny's countless deaths. But nestled within the show's extensive catalog of banned, censored, and internationally restricted content lies a treasure trove of episodes that have been deemed too dangerous, offensive, or culturally sensitive for certain audiences around the world. These banned episodes tell a fascinating story about global cultural differences, the power of religious institutions, and the complex relationship between comedy and censorship in the digital age. 200 and 201, the 2-part 200th episode celebration, remain the most comprehensively banned South Park episodes in history. Following the Revolution Muslim threats against Parker and Stone, these episodes were not only heavily censored on their original broadcast, but have been completely removed from most streaming platforms and DVD releases. Comedy Central refuses to make them available online, creating the bizarre situation where 2 episodes of a major television series have essentially been erased from official existence. Fans can only access bootleg copies that circulate through file-sharing networks, turning these episodes into underground contraband. The international censorship landscape for South Park reveals fascinating cultural fault lines that extend far beyond simple religious sensitivities. Trapped in the Closet, the Scientology episode that started the celebrity war, has been banned outright in several European countries where Scientology enjoys stronger legal protections. Germany, France, and the United Kingdom have all imposed restrictions on broadcasting the episode, demonstrating how American satirical content can run afoul of different national approaches to religious freedom and hate speech legislation. Bloody Mary. The episode featuring a statue of the Virgin Mary that appears to be bleeding from what Kenny believes is her vagina sparked international outrage that extended far beyond typical religious criticism. The Catholic Church mounted organized protest campaigns in multiple countries, leading to the episode being banned in Ireland, heavily censored in Italy, and completely pulled from broadcast schedules in several predominantly Catholic nations. The controversy revealed how deeply religious imagery continues to influence broadcasting standards in ostensibly secular societies. China represents perhaps the most complex censorship challenge for South Park, with the government maintaining an ever-evolving list of banned episodes that reflects the country's shifting political sensitivities. Banned in China, the 2019 episode that directly criticized the Chinese government's censorship practices and human rights record resulted in South Park being completely banned from Chinese internet platforms. Interestingly, this ban was so comprehensive that it extended to removing all mentions of the show from Chinese social media, creating a situation where discussing South Park became a form of political dissent. The Middle Eastern reception of South Park episodes varies dramatically from country to country, revealing complex regional differences in how Islamic societies approach satirical content. While some Gulf states have banned multiple episodes dealing with religious themes, others have allowed heavily edited versions to air with all religious references removed. This has created surreal viewing experiences where episodes about religious conflicts become completely incomprehensible because all references to religion have been digitally erased. Russia's approach to South Park censorship reflects the country's increasingly authoritarian media landscape under Vladimir Putin. Episodes that originally aired without incident in the 1990s and early 2000s have been retroactively banned as the government has tightened control over media content. Putin on the Ritz, which featured the Russian leader in an unflattering light, was not only banned, but led to broader restrictions on satirical content about political leaders in Russian media. The technical challenges of international censorship have created some unintentionally hilarious results. Censors attempting to edit out offensive content have sometimes created episodes that make no narrative sense, with characters appearing to react to events that have been completely removed from the broadcast. Some countries have attempted to dub over offensive dialogue with completely different conversations, creating surreal viewing experiences where characters' mouth movements don't match their supposedly spoken words. Australia's censorship of South Park episodes reflects the country's complex relationship with American cultural imports and its own free speech traditions. While Australia has generally been more permissive than many other countries, certain episodes have been restricted to late-night broadcasts or banned entirely from free-to-air television. The episode Hell on Earth 2006, which featured Steve Irwin with a stingray through his chest shortly after his real death, was considered particularly offensive to Australian sensibilities. The digital age has fundamentally changed how banned episodes circulate and maintain cultural relevance. While traditional broadcast censorship could effectively prevent audiences from seeing controversial content, streaming platforms and file-sharing networks have made banned episodes more accessible than ever before. This has created the paradoxical situation where censorship often increases an episode's popularity and cultural impact rather than diminishing it. Streaming services face unique challenges when dealing with South Park's banned episodes, as they operate across multiple international markets with different censorship standards. Netflix, Hulu, and other platforms have had to develop sophisticated content filtering systems that can automatically restrict certain episodes based on a viewer's geographic location. This has created a global map of cultural sensitivity where the same streaming account might have access to completely different South Park catalogs depending on which country the viewer is accessing from. The economic impact of banned episodes extends beyond simple lost revenue from advertising or streaming fees. International distribution deals for South Park often include complex provisions about content restrictions, with some countries requiring pre-approval of episodes before they can be broadcast. This has influenced how Parker and Stone approach certain topics, knowing that too much controversy could result in their show being banned entirely from lucrative international markets. Legal challenges to South Park censorship have produced mixed results, with courts generally supporting the rights of broadcasters and governments to restrict content they deem inappropriate. However, some free speech advocates have successfully challenged overly broad censorship policies, arguing that satirical content deserves stronger protection than other forms of entertainment. These legal battles have helped establish important precedents about the boundaries between legitimate content restrictions and censorship overreach. The cultural impact of banned episodes often exceeds that of episodes that air normally, demonstrating the power of forbidden content to capture public imagination. Episodes that might have been forgotten if they aired without incident become cultural touchstones precisely because they were banned, proving that censorship often backfires by drawing more attention to the content it seeks to suppress. Perhaps most significantly, the global pattern of South Park censorship reveals how comedy continues to serve as a legitimate form of political and social criticism that authorities take seriously enough to ban. The fact that governments around the world invest time and resources in censoring animated comedy demonstrates both the power of satirical content and the continued fragility of free expression in many societies. The voice acting artistry behind South Park represents one of the most underappreciated aspects of the show's success, a technical and creative achievement that becomes even more remarkable when you realize that just two people, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, provide voices for nearly every major character in the show's extensive universe. While most animated series employ large casts of professional voice actors, each specializing in one or two characters, South Park operates more like a two-man comedy troupe, where Parker and Stone transform themselves into dozens of distinct personalities through nothing more than vocal manipulation and creative timing. Trey Parker serves as the primary voice engine for South Park, providing the vocal foundation for Stan Marsh, Eric Cartman, Randy Marsh, Mr. Garrison, Mr. Mackey, Timmy, Jimmy, Clyde, Craig, Satan, and literally dozens of other recurring and one-off characters. This isn't simply a matter of putting on different accents or changing vocal pitch. Parker has developed a sophisticated system of character voices that remain consistent across hundreds of episodes while still allowing for emotional range and character development within each vocal performance. The technical process behind Parker's voice acting reveals genuine artistry, disguised as crude comedy. Each character requires not just a distinctive vocal signature, but also specific speech patterns, emotional registers, and personality quirks that must be maintained across multiple seasons. Cartman's voice, for example, isn't just higher pitched than Stan's. It also incorporates specific pronunciation patterns, breathing rhythms, and emotional inflections that make the character instantly recognizable, even when he's whispering or singing. Stan Marsh represents Parker's closest to normal voice, serving as the show's emotional center and moral compass. This character allows Parker to deliver the show's most sincere moments without the vocal distortion that characterizes his other performances. However, even Stan's normal voice is carefully modulated to maintain the illusion that he's a 10-year-old boy rather than a grown man, requiring Parker to consistently maintain a slightly higher register while avoiding the cartoonish quality of his other character voices. Eric Cartman arguably represents Parker's greatest voice acting achievement, a character whose vocal performance has become so iconic that it's influenced how people think about animated villains. Cartman's voice combines childish petulance with sociopathic manipulation, requiring Parker to convey both innocent confusion and calculating evil within the same vocal performance. The fact that Parker can make audiences simultaneously laugh at and be horrified by Cartman speaks to his ability to use vocal acting to create complex emotional responses. Matt Stone's vocal contributions, while perhaps less numerous than Parker's, are equally essential to the show's success. Stone voices Kyle Broflovsky, Kenny McCormick, Butterscotch, Jimbo Kern, Tweak, and numerous other characters, bringing a different vocal sensibility that complements Parker's range. Stone's approach tends toward more naturalistic character voices that ground the show's more outlandish elements in recognizable human emotions and speech patterns. Kyle's voice, provided by Stone, serves as the intellectual and moral counterweight to Cartman's chaos, requiring a vocal performance that can convey both childish enthusiasm and mature philosophical thinking. Stone manages to make Kyle sound genuinely intelligent without making him sound adult, a delicate balance that allows the character to serve as the show's voice of reason while still feeling like an authentic 10-year-old. The challenge of voicing Kenny McCormick created one of the most technically interesting vocal performances in animation history. Kenny's muffled speech, caused by his omnipresent orange parka, requires Stone to deliver actual dialogue while making it sound incomprehensible to other characters but still recognizable to dedicated fans who have learned to decode his speech patterns. This isn't just random mumbling. Stone is actually speaking real words that correspond to Kenny's intended dialogue, creating a layer of hidden content that rewards careful listening. Butterscotch has become one of Stone's most beloved vocal creations, a character whose innocent sweetness provides crucial emotional balance to the show's darker elements. Stone's vocal performance captures a specific type of childhood naivety that feels both authentic and slightly exaggerated, creating a character who can deliver devastating social commentary while still sounding genuinely innocent and confused about adult behavior. The voice acting process for South Park episodes happens under the same intense time pressure that characterizes every other aspect of the show's production. Parker and Stone often record character voices while episodes are still being written, requiring them to deliver emotional performances for scenes that may not yet exist in final form. This improvisational approach has led to some of the show's most memorable vocal moments. When Parker or Stone commits fully to a character voice for dialogue, they're essentially making up on the spot. Celebrity impressions represent another dimension of Parker and Stone's vocal artistry, requiring them to capture not just the vocal qualities of famous people, but also their speech patterns, personality quirks, and public personas. Parker's impression of Barbra Streisand in Mecha Streisand became legendary among fans for its combination of vocal accuracy and deliberate exaggeration. His ongoing portrayal of various political figures requires staying current with their public speaking styles and adapting his vocal impressions as these figures evolve in the public eye. The emotional range required for South Park voice acting extends far beyond simple comedy, with both Parker and Stone regularly delivering genuinely moving dramatic performances. Episodes like Kenny Dies or You're Getting Old require the voice actors to convey real sadness, fear, and existential confusion while maintaining their established character voices. The ability to make animated characters feel emotionally authentic while still preserving their comedic potential represents sophisticated voice acting that would challenge even experienced professional actors. Recording sessions for South Park typically involve Parker and Stone working together in the same booth, allowing them to play off each other's energy and timing in ways that wouldn't be possible if they recorded separately. This collaborative approach creates dialogue scenes that feel like genuine conversations between characters rather than isolated vocal performances edited together, contributing to the show's overall sense of authenticity despite its deliberately crude aesthetic. The international dubbing of South Park presents unique challenges for voice actors in other languages, who must somehow capture the specific vocal qualities that Parker and Stone have developed while adapting the performances for different linguistic and cultural contexts. Some international versions have become famous in their own right for creative approaches to translating not just the words, but the vocal personalities of the characters. The influence of Parker and Stone's voice acting approach has extended throughout the animation industry, proving that small voice casts can create more intimate and consistent character portrayals than larger ensembles. Their success has inspired other animated shows to experiment with minimal voice casts and has demonstrated that vocal versatility can be just as valuable as having celebrity voice actors. Perhaps most importantly, the voice acting in South Park demonstrates how vocal performance can serve as a crucial storytelling tool rather than simply a way to deliver dialogue. Parker and Stone use character voices to convey personality, emotion, social status, and even political perspective, creating a rich audio landscape that enhances every other aspect of the show's creative vision. The guest appearances and celebrity cameos in South Park represent a fascinating study in how famous people react to being transformed into crude animated characters, often finding themselves depicted in ways that range from affectionately mocking to absolutely devastating. Unlike most shows that invite celebrities to make sanitized appearances where they play idealized versions of themselves, South Park has built a reputation for featuring famous people in scenarios that are simultaneously flattering and deeply uncomfortable, creating a unique dynamic where being featured on the show is both an honor and a potential public relations nightmare. The history of celebrity appearances on South Park began almost immediately with the show's early success, but these weren't traditional guest spots where famous people voiced themselves. Instead, Parker and Stone developed an approach where they would create animated versions of celebrities and then either invite the actual person to voice their cartoon counterpart or simply have Parker provide the voice himself. This created the surreal situation where celebrities had to decide whether to participate in their own satirical deconstruction or risk having someone else control their animated representation. George Clooney holds the distinction of being South Park's first major celebrity guest, voicing Stan's dog Sparky in the early episode Big Gay AL's Big Gay Boat Ride. This appearance came about because Clooney had been instrumental in distributing the original Spirit of Christmas short around Hollywood, making him something of a South Park godfather. However, even this seemingly innocent role carried the show's signature subversiveness. Sparky was revealed to be gay, making Clooney the voice of South Park's first openly gay character, albeit a dog. The approach to celebrity representation evolved significantly as the show gained cultural influence and began attracting bigger names. Robert Smith of The Cure appeared as himself in the Mecha Streisand episode, helping to battle the giant robot version of Barbra Streisand. Smith's willingness to participate in such an absurd scenario while maintaining his serious goth persona created a template for how celebrities could engage with South Park's bizarre universe while still preserving their public image. Jennifer Aniston's appearance in Rainforest Schmainforest represented a particularly clever use of celebrity casting, where her character served as both environmental activist and the object of the boys' adolescent fantasies. The episode managed to satirize both celebrity environmentalism and childhood sexuality while giving Aniston material that showcased her comedic timing and willingness to mock her own public persona. This balance between respect and ridicule became a hallmark of successful South Park celebrity appearances. The most controversial celebrity appearances often involve figures who didn't consent to their representation, creating situations where Parker and Stone essentially conscript famous people into their satirical universe. The Tom Cruise portrayal in Trapped in the Closet became legendary precisely because Cruise had no control over how he was depicted, resulting in one of the most devastatingly effective celebrity takedowns in television history. The episode's success demonstrated that South Park's power to influence public perception of celebrities extended far beyond willing participants. Kanye West's multiple appearances across several episodes showcase how South Park can track a celebrity's public evolution through animated representation. His first appearance was relatively benign, but subsequent episodes began incorporating his increasingly erratic public behavior, culminating in episodes that portrayed him as genuinely mentally unstable. This ongoing satirical relationship demonstrates how South Park serves as a running commentary on celebrity culture, updating its perspective on public figures as their real-world behavior evolves. The voice acting challenges presented by celebrity episodes reveal another layer of Parker and Stone's versatility. When celebrities decline to voice themselves, Parker must create vocal impressions that capture not just their speech patterns, but their public personas and perceived personality traits. His impression of Russell Crowe in the new Terrence and Phillip movie trailer became famous for exaggerating the actor's reputation for aggression while still making him recognizable to audiences. Musical guests represent a special category of South Park celebrity appearances, where real musicians perform alongside the show's fictional characters in ways that blur the line between reality and animation. Chef Aid, the fictional benefit concert episode, featured actual performances by artists like Elton John, Meat Loaf, and Ozzy Osbourne, creating a surreal multimedia experience where cartoon characters shared the stage with real musical legends. The international implications of celebrity appearances add another layer of complexity to these episodes, as different countries have varying approaches to depicting famous people in satirical contexts. Some nations have stricter libel laws that make certain celebrity portrayals legally problematic, while others have cultural taboos about mocking public figures that can make these episodes particularly controversial when broadcast internationally. The economic impact of celebrity appearances extends beyond simple marketing value, though the publicity generated by famous people engaging with South Park often provides significant promotional benefits for both the show and the celebrities themselves. Appearances on South Park have become a form of cultural currency, demonstrating that a celebrity has enough confidence in their public image to withstand Parker and Stone's satirical treatment. The psychology behind celebrity willingness to appear on South Park reveals interesting insights into how famous people view their own public personas. Celebrities who agree to voice themselves often do so because they recognize that being featured on the show, even in unflattering ways, represents a form of cultural relevance that's valuable in maintaining their public profile. The show's reputation for equal opportunity mockery means that being targeted by South Park isn't necessarily an insult. It's an acknowledgement of cultural significance. The evolution of celebrity culture itself has influenced how South Park approaches famous guest appearances, with social media and reality television creating new categories of celebrity that require different satirical approaches. The rise of internet influencers, YouTube stars, and social media personalities has given Parker and Stone new targets, while also changing how traditional celebrities interact with their audiences and manage their public images. Religious figures represent a particularly sensitive category of celebrity appearances, where South Park has featured everyone from Jesus Christ to various religious leaders in ways that test the boundaries of both comedy and blasphemy. These appearances often generate the most controversy while also providing some of the show's most thoughtful commentary on the relationship between celebrity culture and spiritual authority. The legacy of celebrity appearances on South Park extends far beyond the individual episodes, influencing how other satirical shows approach famous guests and changing the expectations for celebrity participation in comedy programming. The show has demonstrated that celebrities can engage with satirical content without necessarily damaging their public image, provided they approach it with appropriate self-awareness and humor. Perhaps most significantly, South Park's approach to celebrity appearances has changed how famous people think about their own public personas, encouraging a level of self-reflection and humility that might not otherwise exist in celebrity culture. By making it culturally acceptable to laugh at famous people, South Park has contributed to a more democratic approach to celebrity that benefits both entertainers and audiences. The fan theories surrounding South Park represent one of the most creative and obsessive communities in television fandom. A collection of amateur detectives, conspiracy theorists, and cultural analysts who have spent decades dissecting every frame, analyzing every line of dialogue, and constructing elaborate explanations for the show's most mysterious elements. These theories range from the plausible to the absolutely insane, but what makes them fascinating isn't their accuracy. It's how they reveal the incredible depth that fans have discovered beneath South Park's deliberately crude surface. The most persistent and well-developed fan theory concerns Kenny's immortality and the true nature of his repeated deaths and resurrections. While the show eventually provided an official explanation involving Cthulhu cults and cosmic horror, fans had been developing their own theories for years before Parker and Stone revealed the canonical answer. Some theorized that Kenny was trapped in a time loop, others suggested he was an angel or demon, and still others proposed that he represented the eternal victim of American consumer culture, doomed to die repeatedly as a symbol of how society treats its most vulnerable members. The Cartman is secretly gay theory has persisted for decades despite the show's explicit treatment of his character as aggressively heterosexual and often homophobic. Fans point to his obsession with other boys, his frequent homoerotic dreams, and his intense emotional reactions to Kyle's friendship as evidence that his overt homophobia masks deeper sexual confusion. This theory has gained sophistication over the years, with fans analyzing his behavior through psychological frameworks and comparing his character development to real-world studies of repressed sexuality. One of the most elaborate fan theories suggests that the entire South Park universe exists within the imagination of a single character who is actually in a mental institution or coma. Proponents of this theory argue that the show's increasingly surreal elements, alien visitations, supernatural occurrences, and impossible coincidences, make more sense if they're understood as the fantasies of someone disconnected from reality. They point to episodes where reality seems to break down completely as evidence that the show's internal logic is actually the logic of a damaged psyche. The Stan's depression is central to everything theory emerged from careful analysis of episodes across multiple seasons, where fans noticed patterns in Stan's behavior that suggested underlying mental health issues. These theorists argue that Stan's frequent disillusionment, his tendency towards cynicism, and his periodic emotional breakdowns aren't just character quirks, but symptoms of genuine depression that influence how he perceives and interacts with the world around him. This theory gained credibility after episodes like You're Getting Old explicitly address Stan's mental health. Conspiracy theories about the show's production have become almost as elaborate as theories about its content, with some fans convinced that certain episodes contain hidden messages or references that only become apparent when analyzed frame by frame. The six-day production is a myth theory suggests that Parker and Stone actually produce episodes months in advance and only pretend to work under extreme time pressure as a marketing gimmick. While this theory contradicts extensive documentation of the show's production process, its persistence demonstrates how fans sometimes prefer exciting conspiracies to mundane realities. The Butters is the real main character theory represents a sophisticated reading of the show's emotional dynamics, arguing that Butters serves as the true innocent at the center of South Park's moral universe. Proponents argue that while Stan, Kyle, Cartman, and Kenny represent different aspects of childhood corruption, Butters maintains genuine innocence that makes him the show's actual protagonist. They point to episodes where Butters' perspective provides crucial moral clarity and argue that his character development represents the show's truest emotional journey. Religious and mythological theories about South Park often focus on the show's treatment of supernatural elements and its complex relationship with various belief systems. Some fans have developed elaborate theories about the show's cosmology, arguing that Parker and Stone have created a consistent supernatural universe where different religious and mythological traditions coexist in ways that comment on real-world religious conflicts. These theories often involve detailed analysis of how different episodes' supernatural elements relate to each other and what they might reveal about the creator's own spiritual beliefs. The South Park as political allegory theories attempt to decode the show's satirical content as commentary on specific political figures and events, often reading individual episodes as elaborate metaphors for contemporary political situations. While Parker and Stone are generally direct about their political commentary, some fans insist on finding deeper allegorical meanings that connect seemingly unrelated episodes into grand political narratives about American society and government. Time travel and alternate reality theories have emerged from episodes that seem to break or ignore the show's established continuity, with fans proposing that certain inconsistencies can be explained through science fiction concepts. The multiple timeline theory suggests that different seasons of South Park actually take place in parallel universes, which would explain why characters sometimes seem to forget major events from previous episodes or why the town's geography and demographics seem to change arbitrarily. The most psychologically complex fan theories focus on the relationship dynamics between the main characters, particularly the Stan-Kyle friendship and the Cartman-Kyle rivalry. Some fans have developed elaborate psychological profiles for each character, analyzing their behavior patterns across hundreds of episodes to identify underlying personality disorders, family dynamics, and developmental issues that might explain their actions. These theories often draw on real psychological research to support their interpretations of animated character behavior. Feminist readings of South Park have produced theories about the show's treatment of gender and sexuality, with some fans arguing that beneath its surface misogyny lies a sophisticated critique of traditional masculinity and gender roles. These theories often focus on how male characters relate to each other and how the show's few prominent female characters function within its predominantly masculine universe. Economic theories about South Park often focus on the town's impossible economic sustainability, questioning how a small Colorado mountain town can support such a diverse array of businesses and cultural institutions. Fans have developed elaborate explanations for South Park's economy, ranging from secret government subsidies to supernatural influences that keep the town artificially prosperous despite constant disasters. The persistence and creativity of South Park fan theories demonstrate the show's success in creating a fictional universe rich enough to support sustained analysis and interpretation. Whether these theories accurately reflect Parker and Stone's intentions is less important than what they reveal about the show's cultural impact and the creative intelligence of its audience. The fact that fans continue developing new theories after more than 2 decades suggests that South Park has achieved the kind of cultural depth that sustains ongoing intellectual engagement far beyond its immediate entertainment value. The evolution of South Park's animation technology represents one of the most dramatic transformations in television history. A journey from literal construction paper cutouts, photographed frame by frame, to sophisticated computer-generated imagery that somehow manages to maintain the crude, handmade aesthetic that originally defined the show. This technological progression reveals not just the advancement of animation software, but also Parker and Stone's commitment to preserving their show's visual identity while embracing tools that allow for increasingly complex storytelling and faster production schedules. The original construction paper method was born from necessity rather than artistic choice, as Trey Parker's college budget couldn't accommodate traditional animation techniques or professional equipment. Using actual scissors, colored paper, and a basic 16mm camera, Parker created the spirit of Christmas through pure stop-motion animation, moving paper cutouts millimeter by millimeter between photographic frames. This process was incredibly labor-intensive, requiring thousands of individual photographs to create just a few minutes of animation, but it established the flat, two-dimensional aesthetic that would become South Park's signature visual style. The transition to computer animation began in earnest during the show's second season, when the production demands of weekly television made traditional stop-motion animation practically impossible. Parker and Stone partnered with animation studios that specialized in digital production, but with one crucial requirement. The computer animation had to look exactly like construction paper cutouts. This mandate created unique technical challenges, as animators had to use sophisticated software to deliberately replicate the limitations and imperfections of craft store materials. The adoption of Power Animator and later Maya as South Park's primary animation software revolutionized the show's production process while maintaining its distinctive visual identity. These professional-grade animation programs allowed the production team to create character models that perfectly mimicked the flat, paper-like appearance of the original shorts, but with the added benefit of being able to manipulate these characters digitally rather than physically. This meant that complex movements, facial expressions, and scene compositions could be created in hours rather than days or weeks. The technical specifications required to maintain South Park's paper cutout aesthetic within sophisticated animation software reveal the complexity hidden beneath the show's simple appearance. Character models are deliberately constructed as flat, two-dimensional objects with minimal depth or perspective. Textures are designed to replicate the slightly uneven coloring and rough edges of construction paper. Even the animation timing is carefully calibrated to maintain the slightly jerky, imperfect movement quality that characterized the original stop-motion technique. One of the most significant technological advances came with the development of South Park's proprietary character rigging system, which allows animators to quickly assemble and manipulate character movements without having to redraw or remodel characters for each scene. This system includes pre-built facial expressions, gesture libraries, and movement patterns that can be mixed and matched to create the illusion of spontaneous character behavior while maintaining visual consistency across episodes. The voice synchronization technology developed specifically for South Park represents another crucial innovation in the show's technical evolution. Because Parker and Stone voice most of the characters themselves, often recording dialogue while episodes are still being written, the animation software needed to accommodate rapid lip-sync adjustments and real-time dialogue changes. The current system allows voice tracks to be integrated into character animations almost instantly, enabling the show's famously tight production schedule. Background rendering techniques have evolved significantly from the original hand-drawn settings to sophisticated digital environments that still maintain the flat, simplistic aesthetic of elementary school art projects. The current system includes extensive libraries of pre-built background elements, houses, trees, vehicles, signs, that can be quickly assembled into new configurations for each episode while ensuring visual consistency with the show's established world. The special effects capabilities available to modern South Park episodes would have been impossible with the original construction paper method, yet they're designed to look like they could have been created with scissors and glue. Explosions are deliberately crude and flat. Magical effects maintain the paper cutout aesthetic, and even elaborate fantasy sequences are constrained by the visual rules established in those early college experiments. This commitment to visual consistency requires constant technical innovation to create increasingly sophisticated effects within deliberately primitive visual parameters. The rendering and compositing process for modern South Park episodes involves multiple layers of digital imagery being combined to create the final product, but each layer is designed to look hand-assembled. Characters are rendered separately from backgrounds, which are rendered separately from effects, but the final composite is carefully color-corrected and processed to eliminate any trace of digital sophistication that might break the illusion of homemade animation. Quality control systems have been developed specifically to ensure that the deliberately crude aesthetic remains consistent across different animators, directors, and production teams. These systems include automated checks for color consistency, movement patterns, and visual style, essentially using sophisticated technology to enforce artistic simplicity. The irony of using cutting-edge software to maintain deliberately primitive aesthetics captures the essential paradox of modern South Park production. The integration of motion capture technology has allowed for more complex character movements while preserving the show's signature style limitations. Actors can perform elaborate physical comedy that gets translated into the flat, paper cutout movement vocabulary, allowing for more sophisticated physical humor while maintaining visual authenticity to the original construction paper aesthetic. Real-time rendering capabilities have become crucial to meeting South Park's 6-day production schedule, allowing animators to see immediate results from their work rather than waiting hours for traditional rendering processes. This technology enables the rapid iteration and modification that makes the show's tight deadlines possible, letting directors and animators make last-minute changes without derailing the entire production schedule. The international distribution of South Park episodes requires technical considerations for different broadcasting standards, resolution requirements, and color specifications across various countries and platforms. The animation pipeline includes automated systems for generating multiple format versions of each episode, ensuring that the show's visual quality remains consistent whether viewed on American cable television, European streaming platforms, or mobile devices worldwide. Perhaps most remarkably, the current South Park animation system has become sophisticated enough to produce the show's increasingly complex musical sequences, elaborate fantasy episodes, and multi-part story arcs, while still looking like it was made by elementary school students with construction paper markers. This represents a unique achievement in animation technology, using the most advanced tools available to perfectly replicate the most primitive techniques possible. The merchandising empire surrounding South Park represents one of the most successful transformations of crude animated characters into a global commercial phenomenon, proving that even the most deliberately offensive content can be successfully packaged and sold to mainstream audiences when handled with the right combination of irreverence and business acumen. From humble beginnings, selling bootleg t-shirts at college campuses, to a multi-million-dollar licensing operation that spans everything from plush toys to video games, South Park's merchandising success demonstrates how authentic cultural phenomena can translate into sustainable commercial enterprises. The earliest South Park merchandise emerged organically from fan demand rather than corporate planning, with enterprising college students creating unofficial t-shirts featuring Kenny's deaths, Cartman's catchphrases, and crude reproductions of the show's characters. These bootleg items, sold at concerts, college campuses, and comic book stores, created the initial market demand that proved the commercial viability of South Park-branded products. Comedy Central quickly recognized this opportunity and began developing official merchandise programs to capture revenue that was otherwise going to unauthorized producers. The first wave of official South Park merchandise faced unique challenges that didn't exist for other animated properties. Primarily the question of how to market products based on characters who regularly engaged in profanity, violence, and controversial behavior. Traditional toy companies were hesitant to associate their brands with South Park's content, while retailers worried about parent complaints and potential boycotts. This led to the development of innovative marketing strategies that emphasize the show's satirical intelligence while downplaying its more controversial elements. Kenny McCormick plush dolls became the breakthrough product that proved South Park merchandise could achieve mainstream commercial success, despite featuring a character famous for dying violently in every episode. The dolls were designed with removable parkas that revealed Kenny's rarely seen face, creating an interactive element that appealed to fans while remaining innocuous enough for general retail distribution. The success of Kenny dolls opened doors for expanded toy lines featuring all the main characters, though each required careful design consideration to maintain commercial viability. The South Park video game franchise represents perhaps the most successful translation of the show's humor and storytelling into interactive entertainment, with titles like The Stick of Truth and The Fractured But Whole receiving critical acclaim for capturing the show's voice and visual style while providing engaging gameplay experiences. These games required close collaboration between Parker and Stone and professional game developers to ensure that the interactive elements enhanced rather than diminished the South Park experience. Clothing and apparel have remained consistent bestsellers in the South Park merchandise catalog, with designs ranging from subtle references that only fans would recognize to bold displays of the show's most famous imagery and catchphrases. The challenge of creating wearable South Park merchandise lies in balancing the show's subversive humor with designs that people feel comfortable wearing in public, leading to clever approaches that convey the show's spirit without reproducing its most controversial content. The international merchandising of South Park products reveals fascinating cultural differences in how different countries approach the commercialization of controversial entertainment content. While American retailers might ban certain designs featuring religious imagery or profanity, European markets often embrace the same products as examples of American irreverence. This has led to region-specific merchandise lines that reflect local cultural sensitivities while maintaining the global brand identity. Collectible items and limited edition releases have become crucial components of the South Park merchandising strategy, capitalizing on fan devotion and the show's long history to create premium products that command higher prices than mass-market items. These collectibles often feature references to specific episodes, rare character variants, or behind-the-scenes content that appeals to dedicated fans willing to pay premium prices for unique items. The digital merchandising revolution has opened new revenue streams for South Park through mobile apps, downloadable content, and digital collectibles that wouldn't have been possible in traditional retail environments. These digital products can include content that might be too controversial for physical retail while reaching international audiences that might not have access to traditional South Park merchandise through conventional distribution channels. Restaurant and food tie-ins have provided some of the most creative South Park merchandising opportunities, with products like Chef's Chocolate Salty Balls and various Cartman-themed snack foods allowing fans to literally consume South Park-branded content. These food products require careful navigation of trademark law, health regulations, and marketing standards while maintaining the irreverent spirit that makes them appealing to fans. The economics of South Park merchandising reveal the complex relationship between content creation and commercial exploitation, as Parker and Stone have had to balance their artistic integrity with the commercial demands of licensing partners and retail distribution. Their insistence on maintaining creative control over merchandise designs and marketing approaches has sometimes limited commercial opportunities, but has preserved the authenticity that makes South Park products genuinely appealing to fans. Home video and streaming merchandise has evolved from simple DVD collections to elaborate box sets featuring behind-the-scenes content, commentary tracks, and exclusive bonus materials that justify premium pricing for content that's otherwise available through streaming services. These physical media products serve as collectible items that provide tangible ownership experiences in an increasingly digital entertainment landscape. The licensing program for South Park merchandise extends beyond simple product placement to include complex partnerships with established brands that want to associate themselves with the show's cultural cachet while managing the risks associated with its controversial content. These partnerships often involve limited-time collaborations that generate buzz and publicity while limiting potential long-term reputation risks for participating brands. Educational and reference materials represent an unexpected but successful category of South Park merchandise, with books, guides, and behind-the-scenes documentaries appealing to fans who want deeper understanding of the show's production process and cultural impact. These products allow for more sophisticated content that might not work in traditional toy or apparel categories, while serving the intellectual curiosity of dedicated fans. The unauthorized merchandise market continues to thrive alongside official products, creating ongoing challenges for brand protection while also serving as a testing ground for new product concepts and design approaches. The relationship between official and bootleg South Park merchandise reflects broader questions about intellectual property, fan creativity, and commercial exploitation in digital media environments. Perhaps most significantly, South Park's merchandising success has influenced how other controversial entertainment properties approach commercial licensing, proving that authentic cultural phenomena can generate substantial revenue streams when marketed with appropriate consideration for audience expectations and cultural sensitivities. The South Park model has become a template for transforming edgy content into mainstream commercial success without sacrificing the authenticity that makes the original content valuable. After more than 2 decades of crude animation, controversial storylines, and cultural provocation, South Park's legacy extends far beyond the boundaries of animated television into the fundamental fabric of American entertainment, political discourse, and social commentary. What began as a simple college animation project has evolved into a cultural institution that has permanently altered how we think about free speech, satirical entertainment, and the role of comedy in addressing serious social issues. The show's influence can be measured not just in ratings or merchandise sales, but in the countless ways it has changed the landscape of modern media and public discourse. The most immediate and obvious aspect of South Park's legacy lies in its transformation of animated television from a medium primarily associated with children's entertainment into a legitimate platform for adult social and political commentary. Before South Park, animated shows for adults were rare experiments that struggled to find audiences or achieve critical respectability. The success of Parker and Stone's creation proved that animation could be a sophisticated storytelling medium capable of addressing complex themes while maintaining broad popular appeal, paving the way for shows like Family Guy, Rick and Morty, BoJack Horseman, and countless others that now dominate the adult animation landscape. The political impact of South Park represents perhaps its most significant cultural contribution, as the show has fundamentally changed how Americans engage with political satire and social criticism. The concept of South Park Republicans, socially liberal but fiscally conservative viewers who identify with the show's libertarian political perspective, has become a recognized political demographic that influences campaign strategies and policy discussions. The show's practice of satirizing both liberal and conservative positions equally has encouraged a more nuanced approach to political discourse that transcends traditional partisan boundaries. South Park's influence on comedy writing extends throughout the entertainment industry, with its rapid response approach to current events becoming the gold standard for topical humor. The show's 6-day production schedule has forced other satirical programs to accelerate their own processes or risk seeming outdated by comparison. More importantly, South Park's willingness to tackle genuinely controversial subjects has expanded the boundaries of acceptable comedic content, giving other comedians and writers permission to address topics that were previously considered too dangerous or offensive for mainstream entertainment. The international cultural impact of South Park reveals how American satirical content can influence global political and social discourse, sometimes in ways that extend far beyond entertainment. Episodes addressing religious extremism, political corruption, and social hypocrisy have been cited in academic papers, political debates, and social movements around the world. The show's treatment of controversial topics has provided a common language for discussing difficult subjects across cultural and linguistic barriers, demonstrating the universal appeal of satirical truth-telling. Educational institutions have increasingly embraced South Park as a legitimate subject for academic study, with courses in media studies, political science, and cultural criticism using episodes as primary source material for understanding contemporary American society. This academic legitimacy represents a remarkable transformation for a show that was initially dismissed as crude shock comedy, proving that entertainment can achieve intellectual respectability without sacrificing its popular appeal or subversive edge. The technological legacy of South Park's production innovations has influenced how other animated series approach the balance between efficiency and quality, with many shows adopting similar rapid production methods to maintain topical relevance. The show's proof that sophisticated animation software could be used to create deliberately crude aesthetics has inspired countless other projects to embrace intentional visual simplicity as an artistic choice rather than a budget limitation. South Park's approach to celebrity culture and public figure satire has permanently altered how famous people interact with satirical media, creating an environment where being featured on the show has become a form of cultural validation rather than simply an attack. The show's treatment of celebrities has influenced how other satirical programs approach public figures, while also changing how celebrities themselves respond to satirical treatment, with many now viewing such attention as beneficial publicity rather than personal attacks. The free speech implications of South Park's battles with censorship have had lasting effects on media regulation and industry standards, with the show's various controversies serving as test cases for the boundaries of acceptable broadcast content. Court cases, regulatory decisions, and industry policies have all been influenced by precedents set through South Park's confrontations with network censors, religious groups, government authorities, establishing important legal and practical frameworks for satirical expression. The show's influence on internet culture and digital media cannot be understated, as South Park was among the first traditional television properties to successfully embrace online distribution and digital engagement. The show's approach to fan interaction, viral marketing, and internet memes has provided a template for how traditional media can adapt to digital environments while maintaining their core identity and appeal. Corporate culture within the entertainment industry has been shaped by South Park's demonstration that creative control and artistic integrity can coexist with commercial success, inspiring other creators to demand greater autonomy over their projects and proving that authentic creative vision often produces better financial results than committee-driven content development. The therapeutic and psychological impact of South Park's humor has been studied by mental health professionals who recognize the show's value in helping audiences process difficult emotions and controversial topics through laughter. The concept of using crude humor to address serious subjects has influenced how therapists, educators, and social workers approach difficult conversations with clients and students. South Park's legacy in the realm of musical theater, demonstrated through the Book of Mormon's unprecedented success, has shown how satirical sensibilities developed in one medium can translate successfully to completely different artistic forms. This cross-media influence has encouraged other television and film creators to explore theatrical adaptations of their work while demonstrating that audiences hungry for intelligent satirical content will follow their favorite creators across different entertainment platforms. Perhaps most importantly, South Park's enduring legacy lies in its demonstration that genuinely subversive art can achieve mainstream success without compromising its essential character or message. The show has proven that audiences are more intelligent, more tolerant of controversy, and more hungry for authentic artistic expression than corporate entertainment executives typically assume. This realization has influenced countless other creators to take creative risks and tackle challenging subjects, enriching the entire landscape of American entertainment. The ultimate measure of South Park's cultural legacy may be found in the conversations it has started rather than the controversies it has generated, as the show has consistently used humor to encourage serious thinking about subjects that might otherwise be avoided or oversimplified. In an era of increasing political polarization and cultural fragmentation, South Park's commitment to equal opportunity satire and its insistence on finding humor in every sacred cow has provided a model for how comedy can serve as a unifying rather than divisive cultural force.